Hi, welcome to the Next Gen Talk Property, and today we're going to touch on the new cooling measures that was announced on the 26th of April 2023. Alright, another round of cooling measures. Well, the last one was actually in September 2022, and the latest one during the budget, there's an increase of the buyer stamp duty. And now this, an increase which is double up for the foreign investors from 30% to 60% in ABSD. Okay, let's dive down to the details of what this cooling measure is about. Firstly, on the Singaporeans, basically we are quite lucky. The first property is still 0% of ABSD. But if you want to invest in the second property, then from 17%, it will increase up to 20%. So there is a 3% increase. And for the PR, alright, the first property still stay the same, still 5% ABSD. And for the second property, if you still want to buy, it's from 25% to 30%. There is an increase of 5%. Okay, then the foreigner, which is the ABSD originally was 30%. And today, if you would like to buy a property in Singapore, residential, it will go up to 60%. That's double of 30%. So basically, we have experienced a lot of cooling measure recently, which actually earlier on was in 2021 December, and then September 2022, and then there's an adjustment of this buyer stamp duty in February 2023, and 2 months later in April, we have this big increase in ABSD for the foreigner especially. Okay, so why does the government want to step in suddenly and so frequently recently? I think it's basically every time when the cooling measures implement, it only dampen for a short period and then the property price keep moving up. And it showed very, very clearly in the first quarter of 2023, property prices still went up 3.3%. With the cooling measures, with the high interest rate, with the high inflation rate, the property prices in Singapore doesn't seem to be cooling off or even, slowing down. So generally, I think this is a very worrying trend for the government. Especially there is, as I mentioned in my previous video, there's a lot of hot money in Singapore from the foreigner, especially from China. Now with the COVID measure has already been taken off, a lot of Chinese are starting to travel. And a lot of them are moving in to Singapore and looking into investing in Singapore. Main of the objective of investment instruments in Singapore is still property. So with this worrying trend, they are going to push up, if they really come in to buy, they're going to push up all the properties sector in Singapore here. So governments don't want to, basically see the Singaporeans getting out of reach to upgrade, basically first property, they still don't want to impose any ABSD because they still want you to upgrade, still want you to buy your first property. But they don't want too many demands. That's why basically they are stopping increasing your second property for PR and Singaporean. And for foreigner, they are literally asking them, please stop buying Singapore property, okay, or investing here, or investing in the property here. All right, so generally the ABSD, this implementation, how would it affect you? And what kind of property segment will it be affected more than the others? Okay, which I think, first, go without saying, the CCR property segment could be affected more, especially for property above 10 million. Because we are seeing a lot of evidence that property below 10 million in CCR, there are more Singaporean buying than foreigner. So we have the 10 best-selling CCR project in 2022. Leiden Green, Perfect 10, Avenia, and so on and so forth. All these property are mostly taken up by the Singaporeans. If you actually add them together and average out, there are about 86% of them are Singaporean and the Singapore PR. And foreigners only take up less than 20%. And the evidence is actually very clear, not only for CCR, even RCR. Okay, so generally, Blossom by the Park. The news was actually announced on the 26th of April night and actually target to launch on 29th of April. They collected 700 over checks. A lot of people actually were thinking that this launch may not be as successful as the previous few. 75% of these 275 units were sold. There's about 198 units sold. And out of these 198 sold, 8 units were sold to foreigner. Okay, these 8 foreigners, 4 of them are from United States America, which has a free trade agreement with Singapore. So the other 4 are from China. So they are still going ahead to purchase even though they have to pay a higher ABSD of 60%. Data has shown that for private properties prices located in RCR and OCR, about 90 to 91% of them are Singaporeans and Singapore PR. The foreigner actually take up only 10% or less in these areas. So the new cooling measures is unlikely to affect the prices in the RCR and OCR private property. That means to say is the RCR and OCR projects will probably stay strong and the prices could keep on going up. Maybe at a slower pace, but it will stay strong, definitely. As I had mentioned in my previous video, I did say that the rental market may actually sort of cool down from the middle of this year 2023 because of more completions of these projects. But due to the increase of the ABSD for the foreigner, which most of them probably will not want to actually purchase, come into the market now, they will have to rent. That means to say it will cause an additional demand onto the rental market. So the supply stays the same, the demand still goes up. That means to say the rental market will stay strong. Likelihood these foreigners are staying put in Singapore while applying for a PR. Hopefully when they get PR, they will start investing into Singapore again. As far as I know, many of my foreign investors, they are thinking of renting while applying for their PR. For foreigner who has already owned a property in Singapore, they are unlikely to sell it because once they sell it, the replacement cost is going to be very high. So that means to say the supply of resale properties in the market is also going to be lower. So what's your take on these new cooling measures? Leave your comment in the comment sections below. Before we end this video, I would like to address a very quick question from our viewer Rachel, which she actually posted in our previous video, what's your goal in your property investment? Here goes the questions. Hi Jen, if one upgrade from a 1 million EC to a bigger and better location of 2 million condo now, wouldn't the forced saving money be eroded by high interest paid to the bank over a period of say 10 years before cash out from a 2 million property to a retirement right-size property? Okay, so generally, what actually caused the high interest rate? So we already know the Federal Reserve is keep on increasing the interest rate because of high inflations. So we are experiencing a very high inflation now. Even in Singapore recently, the inflation has softened down, it still hit 5%. That means to say everything's prices has gone up. Your food, your clothes, where everything you buy, including property and also cars. So generally, the prices of properties is going up. So if you buy a 2 million properties, the property would actually already be higher than 2 millions, even though you're paying high interest. So this high interest is actually playing with this, trying to balance these inflations. So generally, if it's high interest, it also means that the inflation is very high. So that means to say your property price will go higher. So you won't lose out. So investing in properties in Singapore especially is unlikely to lose out over a long term of period. And this high interest probably will soften down when the inflation starts to come down a little bit. So over a whole period of time, capital appreciation is still something that we look at investing in Singapore property market. So I hope I answer your questions. If you have any more further questions, can still post your comments in our comment sections below, and I'll see you in our next video.